So, I just finished reading a really cool novel by Stephen King called The Stand. Today, I'd like to talk about how much it made me think about life post-COVID. The story revolves around a plague called Captain Trips, which destroys all sense of normalcy the characters in the story know. And I noticed that there are a lot of parallels to life before, during, and after lockdown in 2020. Now, I'm sure it must have been different for people reading the novel before the coronavirus, but for me, having literally just read it like a day ago, I finished it. The Stand feels less like fiction and more like a reflection of something that we all felt, even if the details are widely different. Now, the story is not a one-to-one comparison or a step-by-step guide to dealing with a plague. It's obviously not trying to be, but there's something about how it imagines collapse, fear, and survival that hits really deep. So today I want to slow down, walk through the story again, and talk about what The Stand gets right and parts of where it misses the mark. Now let's talk about plague stories, isolation, human nature, and what we learned by living through one. Also, by the way, there are some slight spoilers ahead, so if you don't want to hear those, click off the video and go read all, 1,200 pages of the book or so. Anyways, enjoy. The beginning of The Stand is one of the most unsettling things Stephen King has, at least from what I've read, has ever written. Captain Trips, that's the virus in the book. I don't know why they call it that. That's just what one of the characters calls it, and that's just what everyone else calls it. Anyways, it starts as an experimental military bioweapon, so it escapes from the facility that it's held in through pretty much just one mistake. It's one guy and his family. They happen to be infected with it, and they flee the facility. I would insert a Roblox meme here, but that would be pretty corny. Anyways, from there, it's just kind of game over, because this thing is, really deadly. So King tracks the spread of the disease like a journalist. He does it city by city, family by family. And it feels almost clinical in how it shows the collapse. So you got the military trying to keep things quiet, officials lying on the news, people going to work sick, even though they don't know that they're infected. And honestly, to an extent, it's terrifying how similar that all felt in 2020. Now, granted, in the real world, we didn't really have a 99.4% fatality rate, thank goodness. But we did have confusion, misinformation, and denial. I, like many other people during the early weeks and months of lockdown, wrestled with what information I could see as true. People all over social media claim to know how the virus started and the best way to protect yourself. To be honest, a lot of what King describes in The Stand really aligns with how misinformation would spread during a time of panic. It wasn't prophetic by any means. It was just brutally honest about how systems crumble during times like these. Here's something else I noticed. Pandemics aren't just about the death tolls. They're about the emotional weight of living in fear. In The Stand, people don't just die. The rest of the survivors and some of the people who die go insane from the loneliness, the guilt, and the constant tension. People who die don't just die immediately. Sometimes it takes weeks for them to pass away. And at that point, all of their loved ones could be dead, and it could be them by themselves. Naturally, things could go kind of wacky in their head. As an example, there's a radio DJ who keeps broadcasting to an empty world as if he's still coughing up blood. And there's also a woman who wanders around empty neighborhoods leaving food out for people who will obviously never come. It's really heartbreaking, and weirdly, it mirrors a little bit of how some of us cope during lockdown. I mean, how many of us were doing little rituals to hold on to normalcy? Whether that was watering plants, rewatching comfort shows, baking bread, playing games like the one you're watching right now. King's examples are quite extreme, obviously. This slow and pathological grind, though, that's something I can relate to. And The Stand leans into it. And in doing so, it gets a really important truth right, which is that the scariest part of the pandemic, in my opinion, isn't always the virus. It's what it reveals about us. Don't get me wrong, the virus was terrible, but also the mental effects from the virus on society and individuals is something really to take into account. Now, let's be fair, The Stand is also very dramatic, very dramatic. And when it comes to realism, it kind of gets some stuff wrong. For one, civilization in the story collapses way too fast. Like in the book, society is pretty much just gone within a week or two. Power grid fails, phones stop working, no food, no fuel. But contrary to that, during COVID, we kept going, imperfectly and messily, but we still kept going. In all fairness, though, the story was set in like the 90s, so maybe society was ill-equipped to deal with something of that magnitude. Comparing that to nowadays, though, we figured out how to use Zoom and bring that into classes or work meetings. We use face masks to protect ourselves and others. Grocery stores were restocked, delivery drivers kept the world spinning, and more importantly, there was no clear line, I should say, between good and evil during the COVID lockdown. There was no good guy, there was no bad guy. However, in The Stand, survivors split into two camps. The good guys went to Boulder, Colorado, and the bad guys went to Las Vegas with this guy, Randall Flagg. Literally like the devil in a leather jacket. And it's a cool metaphor, don't get me wrong, but real life obviously doesn't work like that. People weren't joining evil societies during COVID. They were just scared, confused, and sometimes selfish. Not good or bad, obviously, just human. One of the most powerful parts of The Stand, though, comes after the plague. It's about what people do next. How do you start over? How do you find meaning again? For King's characters, the answer is community, which I think is pretty interesting. People gravitate towards each other. They form new cities, share stories, and try to build something better. That part hit hard after COVID, too. Think about all the little ways we reached out during lockdown, whether that was group chats, FaceTime dinners, Animal Crossing islands. And even now, after so much isolation, there's a hunger to reconnect, to find people who get it, right? Find people who get you as a person, who can connect with you. And King might have leaned into the fantasy with his epic good versus evil showdown, but his message about togetherness, well, that's real. In the end, The Stand isn't just about a virus. It's about what happens when the old world ends, and the terrifying freedom that comes with starting over. It's not a pandemic manual, but it's a powerful mirror of our fears, our failures, and our need to find light in the dark. We lived through a different kind of plague, and now, like King survivors, we're figuring out how to rebuild. Granted, it's been 5 years, or roughly 4 years, since lockdowns have finished, and we're kind of getting back to a sense of normalcy. But to an extent, there are some things that are still trending upward in terms of connectivity between people. Not necessarily actual places opening up, but people opening up to one another, being more outgoing, being more social. I feel that after COVID, people have developed somewhat of a social anxiety, a collective social anxiety, one that keeps people isolated from one another. And I kind of relate that to the antithesis of what King is speaking about. After the plague happened in his novel, people instantly gravitated together, the survivors. Obviously, they were immune to the disease, so it wasn't like they had to wear masks or anything, that they had to social distance, but they did try to rebuild as quickly as possible. Now, maybe in real life it's not in Boulder, or maybe it's not in Vegas, but somewhere in between. Who knows? I don't know. That was just something I figured I would speak my mind about. A little parallel that I thought was cool. But thank you so much for listening. Drop a comment if you've read The Stand, or if it feels a little different now hearing a different perspective on it, comparing it to COVID or whatever. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. I'll be over here wandering through pixels, thinking about the end of the world or whatever. Probably finishing my house in Minecraft or whatever I'm doing right now. And the strange beauty of starting over again. That'd be something cool to think about. But yeah, thank you so much for listening, and I will see you in the next video, whenever that is. Maybe it'll be something different. I'm not sure. I might not do another commentary like this in the near future. I would like to do another one, but I'll probably formulate a better script than the one I have now. But yeah, give me some video ideas in the comments, and yeah, I appreciate you all, anyone who's here listening, and have a very wonderful day.